When I think about how stories are passed down generation to generation in musical theater, a lot of what I think about is just the inevitability of influence. So after reading this week's content and seeing how, the West Side Story is retelling of Shakespeare, and Mr. Bojangles is a person, but there's been a lot of artwork inspired by him. It reminds me of how inevitable influence is, and how you are a person with so many lived experiences that you can't just completely come up with something 100% original, because you're probably always going to be pulling from somewhere in the back of your mind, even if it isn't as obvious as adaptations, like what we talked about in last week's discussion. There's always going to be some kind of personal or learned influence that's in the back of your mind. And so I just find that really interesting, because it's almost like they're the same stories being told generation through generation for probably hundreds of years now. And I think the best way that the course has helped me contextualize this is probably the textbook. Reading a lot about how this song means this, and most musicals have this song, and how certain things affect the audience, just made me realize how, even though musical theater can be so different from one show to the next, there's still always got to be that through line, because it's an industry and storytelling always has those things. And so it's just nice to kind of see it be put into words, and this is what's happening, and here's kind of an explanation for that. In this specific content, the perspective that probably helped me reshape my worldview the most was the chapter, the reading on the Music Man and the West Side Story, specifically because it kind of personally reminded me of my childhood, because I am from Iowa. I'm live 2 hours away from Mason City, and the Music Man was one of the first ever musicals I encountered when I was in 6th grade. The middle school, they took some of the middle schoolers and put them in it. I wasn't in it, and it was associated with the high school, so I saw it because I had friends in it, and I've even used one of the songs as an audition piece, but I haven't revisited the story in a very long time. And so I just thought that was really interesting to see how the lack of discussion about race can be a discussion about race, because I think that that's a very important topic to address, but also one that is often ignored. And so it was a really enlightening thing to read. And if I was going to retell a musical, I probably would love to do something with Shakespeare, specifically Hamlet. I've kind of had this idea that I think would be super interesting, and I don't know if this has been done before. It's Shakespeare, so probably. But I think it would be cool to do a rock type musical with the lyrics being Shakespearean and the book, the lines itself, being modern. Because I think a lot of people my age, and I'm sure some older and younger too, really it doesn't click with them. But I love Shakespeare, and I think that when you put these poetic, wordy lines to music, it makes it a lot easier for some people to understand. And so I think it could be a really interesting way to teach it, is if you teach it as a song, because I know music has a lot of educational benefits, and so I just think it could be really interesting.